Hello, and welcome to this next episode of the Neurologic Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Aiden Marietta.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Justin George, and as always, it's great to be here. And we have a lot to talk about in our episode today. And as always, we've got a great podcast for you, and we have many things to talk about. So we're going to be talking about the time changes, Indiana roads, and we're even going to be introducing a new fun segment as well.
That's right. So let's just get right into it. Um, as everyone knows, the time changed. We are now behind 1 hour. We went back an hour, I think, so that way we have a little extra sunlight, which I'm actually okay with.
And then we
But
sprung forward. Isn't
yes,
that nice?
yes, and then of course, when I remember I used to joke about with time changes when politicians would say we need to keep the clock somewhere. I always made a joke saying, in other news, politicians think they can control the tilt of the Earth's axis.
They think
But
they
then again,
can.
this has been a thing for as long as anyone can remember. Here in Indiana, we have two time zones. Most of us are in the Eastern time zone, although if you're in the Chicago metro area or you're in the Evansville area, you're pretty much in the Central time zone. And so far, some people like that arrangement. Some people want the whole state to be in the Central time zone. It's an ongoing debate, but it's a good thing it's not like five different time zones. But in any case, the change like that is hard to do, and that's what we're talking about: daylight savings time, transportation issues in Indiana, and oh boy, do we have something to talk about that, and broader political topics that are affecting everyday Americans and even everyday Hoosiers, along with some fun moments. So to start, like I said, with the change discussion, let's talk about that.
It's
I
very
It
interesting.
is, and I think yeah, it's nice to get like an extra hour of sleep when the thing comes, but I don't know. I mean, it makes sense to have like a little less light during the winter time because it's not a good, not a
It's
fun
cold
time.
out.
Yes. And another thing with that is when it comes to coming to spring and then, the weather's getting warmer, to me it makes sense to have the light out a little more. Now, preferably, it would be nice to have the entirety, maybe just at least be consistent. You know, but we would like to ask our listeners because we kind of gave a little thought. Now, I will say it's nice that it's not winter. I mean, it is going to get cold in some areas up in the northern part of our state, like Lake County, St. Joseph County in particular, and most of the northern area, right close to Lake Michigan as well. It's going to get cold up there, probably mostly due to the lake effect. And so if you are in the Indiana Dunes, I'd probably wait a little bit until the weather's warmer to go ahead and maximize your tan.
That's right. You're probably waiting until April, sometimes even May. And we have three questions because for me, like Aiden just said, it's nice to get the extra hour sleep when it comes, and I feel like for me the health benefits are that I was to get the extra hours of sleep, and I'm not tired the next day. But then on the other hand, when you spring forward, I think that it's obviously like you said the springing forward, you get the extra sunlight, but then, you lose that extra hours of sleep, and everybody's groggy and just tired in the morning. And I absolutely can feel it. But I think that I know there's been movements, and we've talked about this on the podcast, where there's been movements to try to keep it at one time year round. And I think that would absolutely be beneficial for our state and for the
Yeah,
country.
I think it would work. I mean, ultimately, I don't think anyone's going to ever have an answer to it. So don't expect that issue to be solved anytime soon because, reasons. I'll put it
Reason.
that way. But our questions would be, did the time change affect your sleep schedule? Me, not so much because I had to go a little earlier for, reasons, but in a good way, for whether it be occupational. I think it was a day before I had a morning shift. So
That's right.
I guess that worked out.
It does.
Do you like having more daylight in the evening? My opinion, when the weather's good enough for it, yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's my answer. And I think you answered in the affirmative. So I think we're good there. Should the United States keep the time change or eliminate it? We want to hear your thoughts on that. That's a complicated one. We and
It's complicated, but I would say, I mean, my personal opinion at least, I want to make sure we hear everyone's opinion, as you just said, but I think
and
well,
no
making
and
sure
really
we eliminate it.
the biggest problem is not no one's going to be happy over that final solution. Let's just be totally real about it. And our opinion is to those three questions, it affected our sleep schedule just a little bit. We like having more daylight in the evening. Gives us more time to do things. And should they keep the time change or eliminate it? Well, I don't think we're, I'm personally, I don't think I'm the most qualified to answer that because there's so many opinions and it's not, you know, you can't please everybody.
That's right. My take, though, I think it should be eliminated because I feel like just keeping it. I mean, and that's a good point that you
And
mentioned.
maybe it would be, as you said, beneficial to the health. In fact, one of our local news stations, WTHR, said daylight savings time is back, and here's how the clock change can affect your health. So we sprung forward, as they point out. But I also want to say it's really the biggest effect from what they say is sleep disruption. Maybe some stuff, as they say, they found this study from the American Heart Association in Michigan that heart attacks and their thing, quote, rose about 24% on Monday following the switch. Then that sleep loss and circadian disruption, hopefully I probably butchered that pronunciation, but anyways, are believed to play a role. So there are some health parts in this, and of course, safety risks. You know, the time change can be um, prone to more auto accidents. So, you know, it's not easy to adjust to any change, and you know, you kind of have to do what you got to do with that. So really, that's all that can be done. But in any case, yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm personally, I don't think I'm the most qualified to speak about a time change because I don't think there's so many opinions. You're not going to please everybody, and I don't even think this issue is going to ever be definitively solved. Like I'm sure you would agree with me on that. But you know, I personally like warmer times, and for me, having more sunlight gives us more to do, and you know, gives us more time to actually enjoy the weather.
Yeah, I can definitely agree on that. I think that if we have more sunlight and if it were something that was all year round, certainly in the winter it's cold and but I think that I would just say, my take is, and I say it's in a good way, a little different. I would say just stick with it year round. And obviously I might not be the most qualified either, but I think that there's so many problems that I know Congress has tried to, a lot of them, of course, are inept and
Yeah,
everything.
I mean, let's be honest. When's the last time Congress ever did something meaningful? Oh wait, probably back in the 1990s when Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, and we got Bill Clinton to sign the stuff that he promised and that we were campaigning on because of the Republican Revolution. Let's see, it was the tax cuts, the welfare reform, the balancing the budget, the only time in somebody's
That's
lifetime in recent years that we actually had a balanced federal budget.
that's
We
right.
could have paid down the national debt, but and remember, it was the Republican Congress that forced them to do that. And we did see a lot of good victories, even in 1998, which kind of was neither a win nor a loss for either one. You know, we had Illinois, we defeated a Democratic incumbent with Peter Fitzgerald. A lot of people don't remember that, but that was a big deal.
That's right. And I think
And he took down someone who'd won in what was that the year of the woman? I think it was Carol Mosley Braun, if I remember correctly.
that's right. And getting back to getting back on topic here, I think
Yes.
the article that we just cited, we're using WTHR and it talked about the health impacts. And this gets into just this whole thing with Congress. Obviously, they're going to be inept. Now we do have something we want to talk about here, and this is from fox59.com.
Yes, our
And
other station, WXIN, our next star station here, we're going to be talking about roads this time, kind of like what we just were talking about with the roads. Now, this has nothing to do with auto accidents, at least not in this case. But if you're a driver and you use the interstate highways here, you got to pay attention to this. And even if you don't use the interstate highways all the time, you're going to use it at least once in your life. So this is too important. So this is about we've talked about this before, I believe, Justin, where it was the plan to put toll roads on I-70.
that's right. And I first of all, the fact is that and we're going to get into this in a moment. It's fiscally not needed. It's not quantifiable, and the reason is because we're going to get into how our state budget actually has the reserves, and we have the citation for it. And again, this is from fox59.com. And so what happened here is there's a state plan to turn I-70 to a toll road, and includes a rate proposal of 10 cents per mile for passenger vehicles. And get ready for this.
Ridiculous.
54 cents per mile for large trucks. At this rate, it would cost a car $15.60 to travel across the state, and specifically 156 miles of the stretch of I-70 border to border. And think about this, a semi truck, it's going to cost you $84.24. And again, this is according to Fox 59. And this is really, I would say, egregious.
Absolutely egregious.
And again, how this started with was last year in the General Assembly. House Bill,
House Bill 1461.
that's right, House Bill 1461 gave the governor the approval to do the tolls. So of course, the governor is now, along with NDOT, has petitioned the Federal Highway Administration to do the tolls, and
And
this
this
is
was
not needed.
sponsored by people on all sides. And we have the usual care. I would say we have the usual folks who come in to raise your taxes. Doug Miller, Jim Pressel, and then and you think, oh, it was only the Republicans. No, the Democrats jumped in on this as
They
well. Fadi Kadora and J.D. Ford, both of them. And by the way, J.D. Ford's running for Congress, and in his district, I asked him in his district, the voters there, and we're trying to run against Victoria Sparks. And if the Congresswoman's listening, we appreciate what she's doing. Ask him why he sponsored a bill to support toll roads, because that's going to hurt him.
Well, and it also goes back to not just that, but the fact that when you look at when you look at all of what we're doing here in Indiana, we are a great state. We're supposed to be known for Hoosier
We're the
hospitality.
crossroads of
And
America.
yeah, and the fact is, the governor was even cited in a different news article. We don't have that in front of us, but he basically just is, lambasting anybody who is against this, talking about you're sticking
And
your head in the sand if you don't have tolling as an option. And that's very like, I mean, we laughed a bit, but it's I mean, it's just like, like, I mean, and I know that was directed at our lieutenant governor, but the problem is
mm-hmm.
we're supposed to be known as, like I said, Hoosier hospitality, but also you're going to see in a moment with the finances why, we have a budget surplus. This is not necessary. Now, our lieutenant governor on June 21st, 2025 on Facebook, he said, "This is a hard pass for me. Tolling our interstates is a form of taxation and another financial burden that Indiana Republicans want to put on Hoosiers. Call your state reps and state senators and tell them to end this nonsense right now. Don't Illinois my Indiana." And I'll add, this is the thing. We're young Republicans, but at the end of the day, not everybody who has the name Republican on a ballot, on a piece of paper, is actually a Republican. And this is the problem here, is that you're seeing these career politicians where they come in here, they talk about doing things, or they say we're going to be entrepreneurial. Well,
Whatever that means.
and here's and exactly. And it's not even that it's about just one little thing. This is really going to affect people. So imagine, for example, if you're trying to visit family or friends like in Ohio or Illinois, you're going to have to pay that one way. That's over $32, going both ways. If you have to do that several times a week, it's really going to
And
add
I would
up.
add on to that. You mentioned Ohio, because I-70
DeWine,
goes to Ohio. Well, if DeWine had the chance to put toll roads on I-70, he would do it.
oh, he
Although,
would.
although, then again, his successor might do it. I hope not. Oh boy. But what I'm saying
So
is,
a can of
now, if
so a
let's
can of
say
worms.
you're going to the Mid Ohio IndyCar race, I've gone down there a few times before, and let's say you and I were to travel down there, and which we might in the future. I think that would be a lot of fun,
It would
because
be.
you have to take I-70 and you have to take another interstate to go to Belleville, which is the it's called a village in legal terms. It's a little town just a few miles outside of the city of Mansfield. So if you want to go ahead and you kind of have to take I-70 to get to the Columbus, Ohio, and then take another interstate to go right up to mid Ohio and that area where the Mansfield area is. And in Ontario as well, they have a Ontario Center, which is like Nexus Park in Columbus. Pretty cool. But my larger point, and you would agree with me on this, is that basically they might try to put tolls right on the Ohio border. You think DeWine's going to fight against it? No.
No, in fact, DeWine's not going to fight against it. Let's remember too that his former Lieutenant Governor John Husted, who's now the U.S. Senator there, that was all done on purpose. So it's not just the Indiana issue, and I'm sure if he could find a way, I'm sure DeWine would absolutely be tolling things. And let's remember too, you have the Ohio Turnpike, you have the
Hmm.
Pennsylvania Turnpike. Those roads, a little historical fact for you. Now, Interstate 70, when it goes through Ohio, goes through Columbus, and not Columbus, Indiana. We love Columbus, Indiana, but Columbus, Ohio.
I-65 goes through Columbus,
That's
Indiana.
right. And so Interstate 70, it goes through Pennsylvania, and eventually goes with 76 and is the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Folks need to remember the Pennsylvania Turnpike was built they had this idea, it was from the old railroad right of ways, and that was built back in the 40s and 50s is when this stuff first got started over there. And they are now just, for example, the Allegheny Mountain Tunnel, which is east or west of Breezewood, Pennsylvania, they are going to replace that. And here's the difference. That is a turnpike where it was designated as such because yes, it's a federal highway, but they didn't add those tolls. Now, certainly the amount of tolls has fluctuated over the years. And the other thing too, little fun fact for you about Interstate 70. Breezewood, Pennsylvania is one of, I believe, only two places where the interstate actually has the at-grade intersection. I've been through there before many times, and
There you go.
it's nice. And like you absolutely talked about visiting Ohio. And the reason why I bring this up, what do we want our state of Indiana to be known for? What do we want Interstate 70 here to
Do
be
we
known
want to be
for?
known as the crossroads of tolls? I don't think so. I certainly don't want that. And here's the funny part. NDOT, according to this Fox 59 article, NDOT is saying, oh, we have a shortfall. But if we at least do tolls, and they're trying to say it's critically necessary. First of all, our comptroller's office would disagree with you. Actually, in fact, we'll read it just from her press release from her office. Indiana fiscal discipline delivers $676 million surplus, very low debt, and this is the important part, continuing a AAA bond rating. Our credit rating is still one of the best in the country, among the best in the country. This right here disproves what NDOT is saying. There is no shortfall. There is no deficit. Although I wouldn't be shocked if there is by the end of the next few years
I wouldn't be.
if they go with this route because it will waste more money.
It's in Indiana is, and here's another fact from there too, that we have the Fox 59 citation, but also the fact is that going back to the surplus is
Mhm.
here's where you really have to get into it. And this is why we want to bring the facts, because we want to basically we pull back the curtain, shine that flashlight on what's going on. Now, you have the transparency portal and different tools that are available to you. And what's really important with this is if you look at 2025,
The
and
fiscal year, the
yes,
highlights.
if you look at the highlights of that, let's go through that. Indiana's net position grew to 33.5 billion in fiscal year 2025, a key measure of long-term financial stability that reflects the strength of our balance sheet. And this is from indiana.gov, in.gov, and this is from Comptroller Nishala's website. Kudos to her for putting this information out there. And again, what Aidan just read, the fiscal year at close was 676 million surplus and 2.5 billion dollars in reserves, the latter of which is equal to 11% of the state general fund expenditures. Just over 20 years ago, the year-end surplus was only 6 cents, a contrast that underscores the importance of structural reforms and sustained fiscal discipline. As only as one of only 13 states to hold a AAA credit rating from all three major credit rating agencies, Indiana's net tax supported debt also declined again this year, falling from 186 per capita last year to $169 this year. So again, when you look at it, and we're going to go through the highlights here.
$26.4 billion in the general fund, which is up 6.8%.
From
There's
fis-
cash in there to
that's
use for the roads.
That's right, from fiscal 2024. And again, you have the 676 million year-end surplus, 2.5 billion in reserve, which is 11% of general fund expenditures. 33.5 billion,
Net
and
position,
that's right.
a
The trip,
AAA bond rating,
yes,
Fitch, Moody's, S&P,
and the
and we
fourth
are
lowest debt per capita state in the nation. And let me just say that again to emphasize that we're the fourth lowest debt per capita state in the nation.
there is plenty of money to use to fix the roads fix the roads. They just have to have the courage to do it. There is no need for this tolling. This tolling is just another money grab because it's going to line somebody's pockets. That's why all those people on both sides.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't just the Republicans we pointed out. It was J.D. Ford, Fadi Kadora, both of them Democrats.
And again, all of this, you can go look at House Bill 1461, and that's where it's coming from. And also back to the Fox 59 website, where there's this document there. I guess it was FOIA'd and finally released by the governor's office, where it talks about, and this is also in conjunction with INDOT and their finance authority. There's Interstate System Reconstruction and Rehabilitation Pilot Program application for I-70 in Indiana. By the way, folks, you're not even going to get told until 2029. And these aren't
So
going to be
there's
like
enough
the
time
toll
to
booth.
kill it.
That's right. And these aren't going to be like the toll booths. These are going to be the ones that read your license plates like Riverlink. By the way, every time I visit my parents in the East Tennessee mountains, I always get hit with that toll.
Hmm.
And that's a problem. Now, I should also point out that the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet also has a hand in the Riverlink tolls. So shout out to great folks in Kentucky like TJ Roberts in House District 66, Felicia Rayborn in House District 47, Savannah Mannix, and you've got Gex Williams and Steve Doan and many other people that, oh, by the way, have been supported by the great Representative Thomas Massey in the 4th District over there. So time to get a little sassy with Massey.
Hmm.
But the reason why we bring this up is because it's a multi-state fight.
Hmm.
And I say that because we want our roads to be safer here in Indiana. We want our roads to be
We do.
safer. This is the thing. We want, and this goes back to the inextricable connection of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as it relates to our God-given rights. People should be able to travel freely within the state and across the states, or as I just mentioned, Kentucky, which by the way is one of four commonwealths: Kentucky, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. But my point is that when you look at this, think about how many innocent lives travel our United States roadways every day. It's not just the interstates, it's the state roads, and then it's also the tertiary roads and the back roads. And what we're saying here peacefully as young Republicans, but most importantly as young Hoosiers who care about each other in the country, is that we want our elected officials, especially those who may be listening to this, to please consider the options for actually doing what's right, and to consider not actually, like, to consider, don't just say, "Oh, we need to put tolls there and fix it." If you did that in the private sector, if people did that in the private sector, if you ran, and again,
You get
government,
fired.
yeah, government, shouldn't be run like a business like that. But the
Government is not a business.
exactly. So what we're saying here is we just, we bring you these facts because we're very passionate about it, and we want people, we want people to see what's going on. And we would encourage you at this point with the tolls on Interstate 70, your last result is to peacefully call the Federal Highway Administration, and they do have an office here in Indiana.
The number is, and this is public,
Yep,
by the way.
this
The
is
number
public.
is 317-226-7475. Tell them and be very peaceful about it because that is
Yes,
the only way you can do it. Um, Tell them it's important to call them. Tell them this is not right. You disagree with it, and you need to strongly but respectfully state your concerns because in 2027 there's going to be another legislative session, and there's a chance to get up there and say to them, "Hey, this is bad, put an end to it before it heads up." And some people would be like, and INDOT's trying to say like, oh, this is only temporary. Come on, folks.
it's not
It's
temporary.
not.
It's
Once they get started, it's not temporary unless someone with courage gets in there and puts a stop to it. And you might be thinking, oh, this is just for I-70. Oh no, they won't stop. Oh no, they're the head office that's trying to push for this.
they're gonna
The
go. They're gonna do
saying that we're sticking
65.
in the heads in the sand. Don't think for a second they're going to stop with I-70. They will. Some of them probably might want to get 465, and that's a beltway, by the way.
And
It's
four
not.
six, yeah, 465. I've driven it before and I've been around it. And here's the thing: you're going to toll the Beltway, so now what's going to happen? Downtown's going to become a mess. And then here
Mm-hmm.
here in the Indianapolis region, we call the surrounding counties the donut counties. So you think about all the local and state roads, and you think about places where you have the double yellow lines that are in between, and it's not like two or three lanes. That's it. You think about some of these roads, like in the kind of semi, urban and rural areas. Here's what's going to happen to those roads. Now you're going to have all these cars, going to have all these trucks going down there. And again, this goes back to the life issue. And this is something that Ada and I have gotten into before in our podcast, even just in our own time together as best friends. And that is, we've talked about it's important to be pro-life all the way through. And part of being pro-life all the way through is to pull back that curtain and to shine the flashlight on this issue here in Indiana, our neighboring states, but also across the country, because I guarantee you that you are probably fighting a similar battle. Texas, for example, had this where they were trying to do something with the rhinos down there. Tennessee, it's you run down the whole list of states. Montana, for example, they might not necessarily be trying to do tolls, but you're going to have elected officials. They're not listening to we the people. So going back to what Aidan said about peacefully calling the Federal Highway Department here, that they have an office here in Indiana, is to call and also to give the financial information that we just cited, as well as to do additional research, to do your research, and to tell them. And if it personally impacts you, or maybe you've had a story where sadly you've lost a family member or a friend or a neighbor, maybe there's been, something that's happened, and you don't want them to be impacted. You don't want yourself to be impacted. I certainly don't want to be impacted.
Neither
I
do I.
love exactly. I love driving. We often carpool together. We want to be able to get from point A to point B safely, and
And these
that's
toll roads are not the way to do it.
that's right.
Absolutely. All right, so that was a long conversation, and
It's
obviously,
fun.
it was fun. And again, we oppose the toll roads. Our lieutenant governor opposes the toll roads. A lot of people out there opposed. So when we come back for segment two, we're going to go into sort of updates on how we've been doing and things on the podcast. So stay tuned.
Okay, and for our next segment, for segment two, we had a lot of fun for segment one
Yes,
because
we
we were
did.
talking about the tolls and everything like that, and also talking about the time change. And we don't want the time to get away from us. So we could go for hours, isn't that right?
I see what you did there, and yes, we could.
That's right. So for segment two, we're going to be talking about life updates and community here. And specifically, we're going to be talking about us both as people, which helps you, the listeners, connect with us, as well as even connect with others as we continue to grow our podcast and to be able to interact in the comment sections on all of our social media websites. So first, we want to talk about the growth of our platform and the mission and what it really is. Obviously, many know our story as two happy best friends for life that are love our great state of Indiana, and there's nowhere else we'd rather be. We love visiting and traveling places, and like Aiden mentioned in the last segment, we definitely have a lot of ideas we're going to do together. But for this segment, we want to talk about why we started the podcast, what our website is about, and even some of the response that we have had from you all. And then we're going to talk about our website. And finally, in this segment, we will be talking about our best friendship and life journey and encourage you all, wherever your life journey is at as well. So, first of all, why we actually started the podcast, all right? And why don't you take it away?
Well, that's a very, very good question. We kind of started it mostly because, we have a good passion for like media and things like that. And considering we want to, be able to also make it as a call to action, kind of like what we did with opposition to the toll roads recently with the Mid-States Corridor in one episode that we know is not necessary and is going to line certain industry pockets. I won't get too far into that for now. But we kind of started this to kind of for this to like be our platform to speak our minds and sort of, get others to kind of take action as well.
That's right, and you're exactly right. And what would you say was what was it like when we first started the podcast?
It took a little, we thought we knew what we were doing at first, but I think it took it some practice. But as time went on, we kind of really nailed the formula.
That's right, and also one of the things we wanted to talk about too is our love for communications and radio stuff, as Aiden just mentioned. And one of those things we were inspired to start this podcast because we have been doing some other radio shows here in Indiana.
That is right, and we've done a really good job at those. I think it's been a really fun experience
Very
and
fun.
a lot of fun, and I think that would be an understatement.
Oh, absolutely, would be an understatement, but also, I mean, an understatement, yes, I agree, and I say that in a good way. But it's really we're in our element together, and we're able to be with fellow grassroots, whether it's political or even just delving into the whole, just what really makes both of us tick. And so being able to do that, and one of those things is that is we really just appreciate the opportunity to be on the air because that, for example, being on AM, FM, and then having that, digitally put out as well has really inspired us. And again, these are things that it comes naturally to us, but also it's one of those things where we're just like totally like we're not nervous about going on the air.
No, we actually feel pretty good about going on the air, and that's never been a challenge. And and of course, as he pointed out, things that make us tick. We've done a lot of other things that kind of add on to it, like putting ourselves out there at
Yeah.
certain events recently with fellow grassroots.
And I would say putting ourselves out there, that's a good point that's actually really something that I think has been just like it's always been a blessing to ever since we started this podcast. But I think the fact that we actually really just we're going to be taking it to the next level because we're going to get to this in a moment. We're also going to have guests and we're going to do a lot of other things. And we're going to
Yes.
expand this and really grow it organically. But that's why we started because we realized that we have a voice and that peaceful and positive call to action, especially with what we talked about with the tolling. And we can get a little passionate. Sometimes we get sassy with Massey, as you've heard from previous segments. But then it's what we do with that information, and then being able to say, okay, there's an issue, there's something that's maybe even bothering us, but what do we do to actually solve the problem? And so our website, we have a Google website.
Yes, it's currently from Google Sites. You can go to sites.google.com/view/Aiden and Justin/home. You can learn about us on there. And yes, we can get pretty sassy, such as we
Very.
all know he's up in May for the primary. We are rooting hard for him. And after they had that, the opposition had the rally with, as he calls his opponent, woke Eddie Galrine. You can't spell DEI without Eddie. Um, Massey's poly market numbers shot up recently, as you might have seen.
Yes, by 15%. And it's interesting because for
I
those,
trust poly market more.
yes, I do too. And also because Polymarket, they're good. And I would also say with
They don't
Massey,
always get it right, but for the most part, they do.
they get the direction too. And here's something else too. That election is coming up, and the primary election. So once you get Massey through the primary, obviously he'll sail into the general election
Oh
because in
yeah.
2024 he voted for himself and then technically won the election.
He was unopposed in the general election, so all he had to do was really vote for himself, and he was already the winner. He might have a Democratic opponent this time because I think the Democrats were probably thinking if they think if Eddie Galrine wins, they can take that district. I don't think so, but Eddie would absolutely underperform, and we would have to see. But in any case, Massey's going to walk right through. I have no doubt, and man, that is going to send shockwaves.
It definitely will, and it's in the fourth congressional district is in Kentucky. And fun fact, Massey won that in 2012 with a special election, and it's that was the congressman before that, Jeff Davis, was the one before Thomas Massey. So interesting fact about Kentucky. We talk about Kentucky a lot just because it's the closest. It's I mean, well, obviously you have Illinois and Ohio as we talked about previously, but Kentucky, especially that part, the northwestern part of Kentucky is very similar to southeastern Indiana. And this goes back to our the whole community response and as Zayden, as you said, putting ourselves out there is really we were at the Congress of the Counties event in southern Indiana, French Lick, beautiful place, loved the event, got to talk to a lot of fellow grassroots and
Hmm.
put faces to names and meet people for the first time and even get connected with a lot of young Republicans and to be able to put ourselves out there, which leads us to being able to, and we're going to get to this little teaser for you in the last segment here on today's episode, is that we're going to be having special guests in a couple months to be determined. So we don't have an exact schedule of when we're going to air those.
Yes, we're working on those. One of them. I think we're going to have a few guests. One of them is going to. Our first one will probably be not too long from now because we're pretty excited about
That's
that. We're
right.
working out. We already have the days for it, so we just got to work it out from there. But we're really excited to have some special guests on there. And I don't know, should we tease the special guests or should we keep it a surprise, or what do you think?
Maybe a combination. So let's say that we're going to start here in Indiana
Of
and
course.
our great state of Indiana because we love it a lot and that's why we get passionate. So, maybe teasing guests. I think those who have listened, if not, if you're just joining us for the first time, obviously welcome. And let's just say that we're very passionate about obviously, we hope to get Thomas Massey on one day, but we are also excited about folks here. One of those, I think we mentioned our Lieutenant Governor Micah
I
Beckwith.
think we mentioned him quite a bit, and for good reason. Of course, we saw him at Congress of the County. He's a great guy, all around. And of course, he's got a great family. His wife Susan, our second lady, about as sweet as they get, and she's been good to us as well.
That's right. And so she also has a blog, Bella of the Midwest. So we encourage people to check that out.
Definitely check it out.
Yes,
I'd say
definitely
so.
check it out, and she's got some etiquette tips as well. And we will give a little bit of a teaser that she is somebody that we're going to be having on our podcast to talk about minding your manners, to talk about etiquette, and also this helps you and I when you say to be able to. I mean, we do very well professionally, but to be able to it reinforces the concept of personal growth and things like that. And Hayden's kind of giggling here because we're just so excited, aren't we?
Yeah, but I'm also giggling because I don't know what etiquette tips I'm gonna get, so we'll have
Well,
to see.
it's not I mean,
Nothing bad,
yeah.
but
Well, you definitely need to mind your manners, don't you know?
okay. Oh, here we go with don't you
Yeah.
know?
Tease these others.
But of course, that's what our website's about. The community response, of course, has been very positive. And obviously, if there's things we can always do better that maybe we may need to add on
Yeah,
to it. We always listen to feedback, and that really helps us. And of course, our journey. It's been very it's been a very good journey, I would say.
It has, and some of the things we want to discuss about is, a couple things. We'll get into each one. Why our friendship works so well, supporting each other through challenges, and sticking together for life. And then here's a quote that I came up with: is that one of the biggest messages we want to share is that friendship absolutely matters, and that goes back to the whole, faith, family, friendship, community, opportunity, you name it. And so I want to, start off with why our friendship works so well.
Sure. And I would say, it's just, there's a lot of similarities. There's a few
Yes.
differences, but that's okay. And I think we're able to kind of take those and really try to use see what hey, what kind of what comes of it, I how do I say? Well, maybe I wouldn't put it that way. Like sort of see, hey, there's different things we kind of are similar on, but it's also interesting to know what the differences are. I think that really helps in many ways.
That's right, and it's not that we put an overemphasis on differences, that we look at it as helping, or as inhibiting us in our friendship. But, for example, I hold an amateur radio license from the FCC, so it kind of sort of relates to the podcast and the technical stuff. And one of the things too recently, this is actually a special moment for me to be able to talk about, and that is that Aiden and I are sometimes co-hosts together and guests on the John Russ Show on Freedom 95. He is a conservative farmer here in Indiana, and he has been so gracious to us as to have us to be able to come in and to be able to be with him. Sometimes it's just us with John. Sometimes it's us with, other guests and people that we really appreciate and that we've gotten to know, and just that they are really really special to us because they take the time to do this. And I wanted to mention that because the other day, I was going by the Freedom 95, where the tower is and where the studios are, and this was after the fact of recording. And I thought about being able to do it how I was able to do it right alongside you, Aiden,
Hmm.
and the fact that we were there, and I just had this really just like nice special feeling about being in our element together and being able to do it. We had a really good show with many guests, and that was really something because here we are recording for an AM FM radio show, and then here we are doing our podcast. And even though it's currently only digital, this gets into some of our future goals. We'll talk about that in a moment. But going back to the friendship thing, being able to do stuff like that in our community, being able to actually go on the air. And so I just want to give people the encouragement, whether you have autism like us, or whether you're just, what they say neurotypical, although I don't believe there is such a thing because, as Aiden, as you fantastically point out, we all have our differences and strengths. But I think also knowing that in a culture that's so individualistic, that there's a thing called interdependence, which is what our story is about, but also that teamwork is absolutely essential. And doing this stuff, and one of our goals, and I'll just get into it, is to eventually have our own AM/FM radio show where we take this to the next level.
Yeah, and I think we could absolutely do that. We would have a lot more. I mean, of course, we're going to have guests on here, but of course,
Yes,
I think that would we would have obviously that come to this, and both it would all be combined by that point. But that's part of expanding it for the future goals, and of course, continuing our involvement, which we will absolutely do. And we've got some great people that we're supporting, and we're hoping get it in there. Good. I'll give a shout out to Representative Michelle Davis. She's running for the state senate against Greg Walker, who has been been disappointing to say the least. And he was going to retire, and then for whatever reason changed his mind and decided to run again. And I think that was a complete that's the kind of flip flopping we need much less of. It's like you're going to retire, and then now you're going to all of a sudden run again. It's like, yeah, that makes no sense to me.
absolutely makes no sense, and I second that. So kudos to Michelle Davis for fighting the good fight. I say that peacefully, of course, and for staying in the long haul, and not letting these, as I would call them, establishmentarian politicians try to dictate. And that actually goes back to one of the things, as I mentioned, how we Ada and I do the John Roth show together, and one of the things that I have, that is, it's a reoccurring theme, is how pulling back the curtain and shining the flashlight. And it's something Daniel Horowitz of Conservative Review has talked about, because we're trying to, instead of just going, oh, with the Democrats. I mean, we want to show that it's not just we're young Republicans, but it's not just about, oh, the Democrat. Like, no, it's about actually doing the things that matter, because we want to set the example. So that's why, for example, when we have good people like, the ones that Ada and I have talked about, those are folks that they don't try to like. going back to the point that you made, Aiden, about our similarities, where we have this passion for communications, we have things that when we're in our element together, that they don't try to downplay it as part of just the cultural relativism that you see going on, which of course is inextricably going to be connected to and downstream of it. That's going to be in the politics. We instead
Mhm.
are saying no. We want to do these things as a team, and there's nothing wrong with that. So because we have these similarities, because of the way that God has simply designed us, there is nothing wrong with that. And even as I just mentioned, we had a different take on the time change thing about how we should fix that.
Yeah.
That's okay, and that's part of what makes our friendship special. But at the same time, and I've seen this not just with the establishment, but just with the culture, it's like there was nothing wrong with Ada and I having similarities. So
Yeah,
that's
and
another
I
fun
would
thing as
even
well.
I will also point out, and of course we're going to be helping a lot of hopefully helping a lot of good folks as the time goes on, and not just for this year, we're rooting hard for a lot of great folks out there, and also in the next year in 27 for local races,
We're going to be involved as a team.
maybe 28. It's going to be might be an exciting one. We'll have to see. I certainly hope it would be, but
Yes, very. We've
we've
got a
got a
lot
lot.
to look forward to in 2028 as
Oh yeah,
well.
we do. So yeah, so so it's a lot of great stuff. So I think when we come back, we will have some fun topics, lightning round, and we're gonna make it fun. So stay tuned.
All right, and for our third segment, we're going to have actually not just a little bit of fun, but a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up some of the politics. We're going to talk about, we have some fun topics that we're going to talk about, and we're going to do some rapid fire questions. And we're introducing a new thing that we're doing from now on the podcast. It's called Aiden and Justin's Take of the Week.
That's right. So first and foremost, we're gonna talk. We take inspiration from leaders. I guess this will be our fun take, the take of the week.
That's right.
You want leaders? You can look to folks like Thomas Massey, Savannah Maddox, T.J. Roberts, Felicia Rayborn, um, Micah Beckwith, Todd
Yes,
Rokita, and many others.
that's right. And so we have, as many obviously know from our political passion, we may have an opinion or two.
Oh yeah, good
Good
ones,
opinions.
good ones.
And I'm joking here because we're highly opinionated, and we just this is our element, and it's just really it's just there's a lot, like I mentioned, and like Ada mentioned, with the podcast, with the radio shows that we've done, the future plans. So one of the discussion points, and we're going to get into this, is why young people, and really anybody of all ages, should care about politics. And there's also civic responsibility that we want to get into for this last and final segment of our episode today. And that is the importance of staying informed for all ages, families, friends, and communities. As we mentioned earlier in segment one, we talked about the tolls, we talked about the daylight savings time, and Aidan, you did a good job with giving all of our listeners the information. So kudos to that. And we really like presenting this information as a team to you all. So the civic responsibility, it's important to first of all to shine light on the issues and to talk about what's going on, because many of you all may not, you may just not through no fault of your own have the time. You've got, you know, work or college, whatever it is, and then you get to your home or your apartment or whatever your living situation is, and you've got maybe it's an apartment with friends, maybe it's a house with a family, whatever the situation is. You've got to cook, you've got to do certain responsibilities and activities of daily life. And you're not going to have time to sit there maybe for hours on end to look at politics or to know, to see every single, the minutia of what's going on. So I would just say, and Aiden, this is what I want to get into. What are some words of advice that you would have for folks, no matter their age, before we get into the specifics, especially those who maybe they don't have time, or maybe they just want to know, okay, what's the most important issue, like the toll or
Hmm.
the road safety? What would your advice be to our listeners when it comes to getting involved, or maybe they want to start a podcast of their own, and maybe their gifts and charisms, maybe they just want to make their voice heard, or they have different ways all of contributing. So what would your advice be?
My advice would be just find ways to do it. It's go out there, make your voice heard, and find ways. If you can find a way to get yourself out there and put yourself out there and make your voice heard, go for it. That's my main advice, I would say. And of course, stay involved in community because that's important. Of course, faith is an important part of it. There are resources for that, such as Ascension Press, which get a good shout out to Tyson Priest. We've mentioned him before as a friend of the show. He pointed out this particular website to us.
That's right, and so, basically, Ascension Press, just like with many resources, they have, a Lenten companion. We're currently in the season of Lent. There's also different books, pocket guides, prints, and cards, and that's the thing because it's spiritually efficacious to continue, with a prayer life. I know my prayer life needs improvement, and I would also say
Mine too.
yes, and but we help each other with that, and I think sometimes also for Aiden and I, we because we have the good gift of hyper focus, that sometimes resources like this can help us to really stay on track, and they have an app as well. So maybe I use the Ascension Press app because it helps me keep on track. Because if I don't, what do you think is going to happen?
You probably won't be on track.
Fair point, and I would agree with that 100%. So that's one of the many resources that is out there as well,
Hmm.
and so I think that is important. And the other thing I wanted to say too, we're gonna before we get into rapid fire questions, for me, one of the things I'm doing for this Lent is not eating as much and only eating out on Sundays or on special occasions. Getting out and Ada and I we love the outdoors as well, and we're going to be, we've got, like you said, a lot of things to look forward to.
That we do, and that means getting outdoors and getting fit.
That's right, that's right, and, for people like us who happen to, we're still 100% made in the image and likeness of God, and we're wired differently, but our brains are specially wired to be able to extra process those kinds of things and the positive chemicals, that result from this, so it's very nice, and just it really is something that it goes back to the peace and the calmness that God has given us, but also enjoying the many adventures that we have to look forward to as well to simultaneously do that.
That is right, and boy, have we had a lot of adventures, so to
Yes,
speak.
a lot of adventures. So we've got some fun. Speaking of adventures, though, we have some fun questions for each other. So, Aiden, I'm going to ask you first. And by the way, for our listeners, we appreciate you as much. Feel free to drop this information in the comment sections of the platforms and even interact with each other on these questions and ask yourselves and even ask your family and friends. But I'll start with you, Aiden. What is your favorite place in Indiana if you had to pick one?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Do I have to pick just one?
It can be more than one.
Good. Um, oh, there's a lot of places I like, but if I had to pick a few, probably mostly in the southern part, it would be parts in Brown and Bartholomew County, where I grew up for the first 7 years of my life, and also I would say French Lick. Those are the maybe some. Those aren't the only ones, but those are three places I really like.
Those places are good too, and I like, because we've been together to Aiden has shown me Brown and Bartholomew, and we got to carpool down there, which was nice. That's another thing we do, by the way. We love driving, but carpooling, especially when we do things, it's really nice. So I've been down there. I like French like too, and I also, as I mentioned, the inner peace that I was talking about recently with the radio show that Aiden and I recorded with our fellow grassroots. Franklin is pretty nice too, so it's got a little historic term to it.
It does. It's actually the birthplace and was the home of the late Governor Roger Brannigan. He is buried at the cemetery in Franklin. We've seen the grave site where he was buried.
Absolutely, and there's many places to walk to. There's a local park there. There's also Franklin College, and then the gravesite that Aiden mentioned, a former Governor Brannigan, is right there, in the public cemetery there. Favorite snack? I think this is an easy one for you.
It's actually not.
It should be because you like snacks, don't you?
I do. I do. No comment.
Okay, I'll go ahead and answer. Our favorite snack, we actually share these bags of gummy clusters, and that's actually something that we really like. So,
Good for you.
I answered for us, didn't I?
I think you did, but I mean, there's others that I like, but I got no really. I don't really know if I got a specific favorite.
They're all favorites according to he'll eat anything.
Yeah,
I
sounds
mean, I
about
might,
right.
I might too. And as promised, we have this take of the week, and this is something that we wanted to introduce to you all. We're going to be doing it, and it's going to be something every episode where we give our deep perspective on one issue, and after we go through like we normally do with our segments, it's an action or introspective item. Sometimes it can be both as well. And this is an issue that where we think people should be paying attention to. We're going to get into kind of more just it can be opinionated, but also is just something for you to think about as well. So the first one we're going to do is the question is why should young people be more involved in politics? So Aiden, take it away.
Because your future is literally at stake. And you know, when people are in there not doing their jobs, and when they're putting in tolls, tax hikes, and all these other different things,
And kill switches.
kill switches in the cars. Thankfully, the kill switches were taken down. But when they're doing things like that, you can't sit by idly and just watch. You gotta step up and do something. That's my big thing.
Absolutely. That was I mean, that was spot on, and I think also, your future's at stake, but also I think that you have an important role to play. So for, those who aren't involved but would like to be involved, it's taking that first step, I think is the biggest thing. Take the first step because it's going to be rewarding, and maybe you feel called to start a podcast of your own, maybe you feel called to, you know, maybe speak about something where you're not hosting your own podcast or radio show, but you want to get your voice out there. Maybe there's a nonprofit thing that you want to even, I mean, of course, that isn't strictly political, but maybe, you want to get more involved in something. And, we've talked about the hope concept. We've talked about our community. Maybe you want to get involved in, volunteering at say church or just something in your community. There's a farmer's market or whatever it is that's gonna make you tick, that just, like, be involved, and I would even say, and we'll elaborate on this for a little bit, um, what is the feeling, Aiden, that you get from, like, us being involved with with our podcast, continuing it indefinitely because 'cause we're gonna continue,
Hmm.
but being involved, like, with the radio shows that we've mentioned, and, what would you encourage other people to do, especially if they wanna share their story?
I'd say go out and do it. You know, just give it a shot. It's not probably not the easiest thing to do sometimes, but if you don't give it a try, you really don't know how it's going to go. So I'd say just, just go for it.
Absolutely, and that's what we do with the podcast. When you say we just decided to go for it.
We did, and I think it's working out really well.
Yes, I think it's really working out well too. And so, before we close, I just, you know, our podcast, it's really just something that we are, like I said, and like Aina said, we're gonna have guests. We're gonna do, just a lot more with this and really take it to the next level. And part of that is that own learning. I mean, we have many things like we have many things that we think about. And in my head, and maybe this is the same for you, Aiden, I think you would agree that when we think about an issue like the tolls, it's to actually try to leverage this platform, which is digital. And just like when you think about whether it's the AM FM broadcast, whether, whatever it is, that enough people are going to hear it to make a difference so that we can stop something. Yes, we're very disappointed and frustrated, but it's what we do positively. And that's what gives us both the drive, I would say, to continue.
Absolutely. And I think that would be my closing statement is that we just keep on going. We know who is out there. We vet people to know who's out there for the best interests. And, we've mentioned a lot of great people and we've stayed close with them. And yeah, so I mean, it's not going to stop. And I'm very excited for the future. And we got a lot of stuff coming up in a good way. So
Yes, we
we're gonna
do.
keep that going.
Yes, we do, absolutely, and we absolutely got a lot of good stuff coming up. And so, folks, I just want to thank everyone for listening today, and for especially when we get to share our voices and to put forth the research and to talk about what's important. Of course, all views are our own,
They are.
and we really appreciate every one of our listeners. And of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Podbean. We also do have, of course, as we mentioned, our website. We do have a YouTube page, although we're not posting there. We mainly just use it to interact with others in the comments. And our website has all the contact information where you can reach both of us to be able to, if you want to contact us directly that way. And thank you so much for everyone. And again, I just encourage you to take peaceful action, even if there's something you don't think is pressing right now. Like Aiden mentioned earlier, 2027 with the legislative session in the General Assembly, or maybe there's something, maybe there's a cleanup or something that you can do, spring cleaning. That there's something, whether you know. There's a local park or there's something that needs sprucing up, and just maybe saying, hey, look, like I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna, start something and just see it through to fruition. And we're going to continue this podcast for the long haul. And definitely, I would say decades and decades,
I
and
definitely.
we are not going to stop. And so, folks, I want to thank you all very much, so much. Indiana is a great state, and it's such a blessing to be able to do this podcast with Aiden, my best friend for life, and we appreciate God, our family members, all of our friends and folks in the community, online and offline. Have a great and safe week ahead. And Aiden, I'll let you close as well.
Absolutely. I'll make it quick. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you'll tune in for the next episode after that. We hope we have a lot of great stuff coming up. So definitely stay tuned for more. Thank you.